And now it's time to introduce Lindsay Halsey. So again, Lindsay Halsey's from Pathfinder SEO. Lindsay teaches business owners and freelancers how to get found on Google, Yahoo, and Bing. After 10 years as a partner at an SEO agency, Lindsay noticed that the traditional approaches to SEO just left many people behind as the cost of hiring an agency was prohibitive, or the DIY solution was overwhelming. So I think we've actually seen some of this. Some people allude to this in chat. So Lindsay and the Pathfinder SEO team thought that there must be a better way. So they developed guided SEO. So Lindsay lives in Colorado. She enjoys hiking, biking, and skiing with her family. So with that said, I will turn it over to you, Lindsay. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much. Let me start sharing my screen here.
Sure.
And we'll get started.
Perfect.
Thanks again. Today we're going to talk about adding SEO services to your arsenal. And this is really motivated basically on things that you're already doing. So as a freelancer and agency, you're already providing, as you build and create websites, you're already creating great user experience, lightning fast page speed, mobile friendly and responsive design. And essentially, what's happening here is you're already doing a lot of SEO work on behalf of your client. And so the takeaway here is really that we want you to stop selling only design and development services because you're already doing SEO. And so let's talk about why offer SEO as a service. The first reason is to maintain relationships. It's going to help you stay in touch with your clients in an ongoing partnership because SEO is ongoing. It's usually done over a monthly retainer. You're going to get to solve a problem. Getting found in Google is nearly a universal problem, and you can help. You're going to win more new business. Your sales process is going to become more competitive because you're going to be able to solve for this really big problem that your customers have, in addition to needing a new website, which is getting found in Google. And then you're going to be able to build your recurring revenue, a topic that we're really focused on quite a bit today. So you're going to be able to increase your recurring revenue because SEO is ongoing, and so your pricing models and services will be as well. But we can't just look at the positive side. We definitely have to think about why not offer SEO as a service. The first reason we see folks saying that they don't want to offer SEO as a service is because they have a lack of expertise. And at the end of the day, with SEO, you don't necessarily have to be an expert at SEO. What you need is a standard process that you can follow. And your expertise in SEO is actually probably much higher than you recognize, just based off some of those things that you're already doing that are having a great impact on your client's customer search results. And so if you focus on kind of rounding out that process to really create a holistic SEO approach, you can overcome this challenge of lack of expertise. The other reason is because SEO is overwhelming. This is probably the most commonly used phrase in association with SEO. There's so many tools and so little time. And really, to make SEO not as overwhelming, we really just recommend taking a step-by-step approach. It's like running a marathon or climbing a mountain, and it's not what you do in a single day or in a single hour that's going to impact your SEO results. It's the steady application of effort that is applied over time and kind of heading in one direction that leads to great results. And then the next reason that we hear people say they don't want to engage in SEO services is that SEO changes too much. And really people think about the search engine algorithms constantly changing, and that feeling of panic that you could wake up one day and that your clients could be wiped off the face of Google because of an algorithm change. And again, if you take a holistic long-term approach to SEO, that won't happen to you. In the 10 years I've done SEO, I've never walked into the office and had a panic because of some change in the SEO industry. Usually SEO evolves more than it changes. And so you stay abreast of kind of the evolution and make sure your clients' strategies are sort of evolving in time with them, and you can overcome this hurdle. If we take a minute to step back and understand our customers' pain, we can think of some phrases that they're going to tell us about SEO. It's too expensive, SEO is too complicated, there's too much data, or it just simply takes too much time. Ultimately, you can overcome all of these challenges with your customer. I underscore the with here because SEO is collaborative, and we're going to talk more about that. And so the type of customer you're looking to partner with in SEO understands the collaborative nature, and that your services aren't going to be delivered in some back office with a bunch of magic and tricks to help them improve their search results. Instead, it's going to be very transparent, it's going to be very collaborative, and it's going to take effort across the board. So if we talk about SEO as a service, there are basically 3 ingredients to success for you as a freelancer and agency. The first is the pitch, then pricing, and then lastly, process. Let's start with the pitch. When we're pitching SEO, there's a couple of different tips. The first tip is to start by asking the right questions. How have you approached SEO in the past? Is one of my favorite questions to ask new customers. And the reason is because this really gets people to start talking about a whole myriad of things. They typically tell stories, but if you listen carefully, as Steve was mentioning earlier, and have that really active listening, what you're gonna find is you're gonna hear your prospect talk about the importance of SEO within their organization, the value that they apply to it, their past experience, usually a bit of pain, their expectations for results, and even their people. So who's going to be involved in the project. So the first tip under the pitch is to start by asking the right questions, and this is one of them. The next question I like to ask is, what would your business look like if Google sent you twice as much traffic as they do today? This starts to turn the table. Instead of talking about past pain and where they are today, we move from selling SEO services to selling a destination. So if you're talking to a restaurant, for instance, and you ask this question, they may say, wow, that'll make it so that my Tuesday through Thursday traffic to our restaurant, which are quiet days for us in the evenings, could really get quite busy, and I could hire more staff, which would be great for not only the local economy, but for my business. And so you start to get them basically selling back to you about where they're heading by growing their business with more traffic from Google. And here you move from selling SEO and talking about things like page titles and meta descriptions, which just goes straight over your customer or prospect's head, to talking about the destination of what value this is going to have for their business. In addition to asking the right questions during the pitch, you want to try to avoid industry jargon. So we've all been to a doctor's office before where we've had that patient experience where the doctor starts speaking to you in a language that you don't totally understand, talk more designated for their peers than for their patients. And how did that make you feel? Typically quite alienated from the health process, overwhelmed, frustrated. We don't want to leave our SEO customers feeling this way, whether it's in the sales process under the pitch or when they're our customer. And so when you think about all of these words that pop up here on your screen, and you think about saying something like rich snippet or 404 page, these are words that mean something amongst ourselves, amongst peers, at a summit like we have today. But these words don't mean anything to your prospect or to your customer. And they kind of leave them feeling overwhelmed and left behind. And so instead, what you want to start to do with your vocabulary is try to figure out ways that you can take away the industry jargon and use just common language. Here's the first example, and it gets down to the root of what we're talking about, SEO. Even this phrase can create misconception. Sometimes we have prospects who come to us and they say, I want to talk to you about SEO. And as soon as the conversation gets going, I realize they really want to talk about paid ads in Google Ads. So a lot of times people don't even know what the SEO acronym stands for. And so when we can demystify this is change it and say, hey, let's talk about getting found in Google. And just take the word SEO out, take it out of some of your web copy, and really get down to the essence of what you're helping people do when you perform or when you're providing this as a service. Another example is using the phrase feature snippet. You can really make people excited in the sales process if you're talking about the fact that a website can actually perform above #1. Most people, when they think about SEO, the second thing they think about is rankings, and they always think about, I want to be #1 for this keyword phrase. And so if you can turn the table in your conversations and start to talk about the fact that you can actually rise above #1 and what some of those opportunities are via featured snippet results, but you take that featured snippet out of the conversation, you leave your prospect feeling very excited about this opportunity. And it creates that collaborative sense where they're going to say, okay, great, what can I do? And you can say, all right, you can help me create some good content. So when we're doing our pitch, we're going to ask the right questions. We're going to avoid that jargon, and then we're going to set clear expectations. This is where I think all web projects, required that little pause to make sure that we're all on the same page around expectations. But within SEO, this can be where people go even more wrong than other places, because a lot of times there's a huge disconnect between what your prospect is wanting in terms of results and what's actually possible with a moderate to high investment in SEO. So I had a sales call a few weeks ago with a local business, and they wanted to rank #1 for the phrase woodworking. And so here's a place where an expectation, this is a highly competitive, highly searched for phrase with no geographic qualifier. So it didn't say woodworking in New York or woodworking in Denver, just the phrase woodworking. And so you really want to, in the sales process, be going through some of the different phrases to try to make sure that everybody's expectations meet in the middle. And so there are 4 places that I really think are important to set those expectations during your pitch. The first is that SEO is collaborative, giving them a sense of the breakdown based on what type of project you're selling. So saying, okay, I can do 80% of the work, and I need you to invest the other 20%. Or maybe it flip-flops the other way, and I'm going to be sort of the coach here and do 20% of the work, and you're going to be the real active, delivery person, and you're going to be doing 80%. So making sure that everybody has a really good sense of what that breakdown between the collaboration really means. You want to set expectations around next steps. So do you need Google Analytics access to be able to put together a proposal? What does that process of working with you look like? The biggie that you should be prepared to always answer is, how soon will the client see results? Of course, it depends on how mature the industry is and how competitive of the space, and then how actionable the plan is that you have in place. But making sure that they understand that SEO is a long haul game is a good framework, and kind of letting them know if you anticipate seeing results in weeks or months or years, so that they can budget accordingly and see if everybody's on the same page. And then in the pitch, it's always important to let them know when they're going to hear back from you, and more importantly, to deliver on that. So if I say I'm going to have a proposal to you by the end of day on Wednesday, that's my first opportunity to show them that I respect their time and that I meet deadlines. And so I need to deliver on that part of the pitch. So in summary, ask the right questions, don't sell SEO, sell the business future, avoid industry jargon, and set clear expectations. That brings us into pricing. And the first thing you're going to need for pricing SEO services is a pricing model. And there's 3 common pricing models you'll come across: one-time projects, monthly, and then some kind of a hybrid of a one-time followed by monthly. You can see here, I've bolded those that I really like, which are the monthly and the one-time plus monthly. And I think it's really important at the offset to understand why SEO is a recurring service and not ideally a one-time service. And the reason it's recurring is not because you're trying to build your recurring business, which is what some people think, or that SEOs are sort of greedy and they just want these recurring contracts and they're not going to deliver on it. The reason that SEO is actually a recurring service is for 2 things. One, SEO is always evolving. So the search engines evolve, and you need to evolve alongside with them so that you stay fresh and relevant, and you don't have dips in your traffic and play this sort of, it'd be like running a marathon where you're sprinting and then stopping, sprinting and then stopping. That's not your goal. So you need to evolve as the search engines evolve. The other reason that it's recurring is because the business you're working with evolves. And so as that business evolves, so too does their SEO. They launch a new product. They create a new location for their next restaurant. If they're doing one-time services around SEO, they're going to lose huge opportunities as their business evolves and grows. And so the monthly or the one-time plus monthly pricing model are ways to make sure that your client really gets the most value out of the service from you with that kind of in mind. And then within kind of those tiers of service, I like to have 3 tiers of service. So 3 tiers of service, these are just kind of different words you can use, but you can think of all sorts of different phrases. You basically have your lowest level of service, which is awareness. This is for people saying, how do I get started? You have your action level of service. This is for your person who's saying, how do I get results? They're really starting to get really results oriented. And then accelerative is for the prospect that's thinking to themselves, how do I get next year's results this year? So you're gonna have, say, your monthly pricing model with your 3 tiers of service. And then ultimately, the right price is gonna depend on the industry space that you're serving. And so here's sort of just an example pricing matrix that takes you across what a monthly investment in SEO might look like through these different plans, your awareness, your action, and your accelerative, and then across a couple different industry spaces. So when I think of local businesses, we're thinking local competition and low spend. So they don't have to spend as much to get the same result from SEO as someone maybe on the flip side in, say, insurance. That's a highly competitive industry with high advertising spends. So these are gonna take much more action to be able to propel forward in a much bigger strategy. And so we price up our services according to the type of work and the value that's going to be created throughout the pricing. So starting to work on your pricing matrix so that you have this in hand as you're putting together your pricing and your proposal for your customers is a great way to go. Ultimately, we want you to try to price your value and not your hours. And this can definitely feel hard when you're offering a new service. You say, well, what is my value? Your value doesn't necessarily have to be your 20 years of experience in SEO. Your value can often be the fact that you already know your prospect's business. You're already working on a website for them. You already have a partnership there. And so you already know audience. Your value could be that basically you have the seamless ability to implement the work in the website because you developed it. And so there's a lot of different ways that you're adding value to a project that go just beyond your hours. The third ingredient for success that you're gonna need is process. And when I think about process, I think back to years where I used to work as a mountain guide on Mount Rainier in Washington State. We took novice climbers, people who had maybe just done a bit of hiking, to the top of a glaciated peak. And at the end of the day, our success broke down into having standard process. So every day when we showed up to work, we had different scenarios. We had new customers, we had different weather conditions, and so we had to basically have some flexibility within our process. But at the end of the day, we always started with the basics. And the training that was required. And every hour of our journey over a course of 3 days was really mapped out in a standard way that every guide could follow, so that someone's experience climbing that mountain today was the same as yesterday in terms of kind of order of operations. And so that's what I want you to think about when you think about SEO as a service, is that you're gonna need monthly process that you're going to apply. And the process that's really worked for me over the years is to think about my service as having 3 components. We have reporting, communication and collaboration, and then action items. Under reporting, essentially what you're gonna try to do is every month provide a monthly snapshot into the results. And you want those results to sort of look a little bit like this. Here's what's happening in the data, here's what I'm working on, here's where we're heading and what I'm going to be working on, and here's what I need from you. And having a PDF report that pulls in data from things like Google Analytics and the Google Search Console into one nice PDF is a really great way to go. And so there's a couple of tools out there that you can use to create monthly SEO reports for your customers. I'm a big fan of the Google Data Studio. It's free. It, not surprisingly, integrates nicely with Google products like Analytics and Search Console. And so you can create a reporting template in there to use for your clients. And then there's lots of SEO software out there that one of the offerings is that monthly report for your customer. And so you can take a look at those as options as well. Monthly report in hand, it really springboards things into that communication and collaboration segment of things. And when I think about communication and collaboration, I often think of my job as being like the raft guide in the back of this boat. He knows what's around the next corner. He can clearly communicate, ideally, with his customers who are in the front. And ideally, his customers have their paddles in the water. They're actively engaged in the success of this journey. And the reason is that collaboration is really the foundation of SEO in 2019. So if your goal is to help a business build their expertise, authority, and trust online, and to help them grow this, you're gonna need to work together. And when you're working together, a lot of times what a customer needs is for you to apply some type of a lens to your services. In this case, I really like the lens of 4 pillars of SEO. And so we break down SEO as being either technical, about content and user experience, about on-site SEO or off-site, so that whenever we're collaborating, I can say, hey, Lindsay, let's go focus our efforts on getting more reviews in Google Maps. And this falls under this pillar. And this is an area where we already know that our business has some weaknesses. And so this is an area where we know that the work that we do today is going to have really big impact. And we're going to shift our attention for the next week, for the next month, for the next year, over into this pillar. And so applying that lens is one of the ways that you can really effectively communicate and collaborate with your customer. And then we get into the action item side of things. This is where you're actually doing SEO work, taking the actions that are going to propel a website forward. And in these slides, basically, I just have a handful of just a sample of what your action item list might look like as you onboard a new customer in the first couple of months of service. So in the first month of service, you have a kickoff meeting and you introduce them to the 4 pillars of SEO. You give them an SEO score so they can see how they stack up within those pillars so that they have a little bit of a roadmap to say, wow, we're going to really start with technical SEO, but look over here in that pillar of offsite, we're definitely going to need to head in that direction. I make sure that I have the basics, access to all the different portals I'm going to need. I do my keyword research and make sure I understand the audience well. And then, of course, I take a good look at the competitive set. Next up in month 2, I start thinking about sharing my keyword research and reviewing that with the client. I want to get their input, make sure I really understand audience. And then I start to get into a handful of SEO related tasks. And that goes on and on and on. So as you're building out SEO as a service, you want to start to map this out so that you kind of have an idea of the roadmap where whether you're a small local business or an enterprise level client, we go through this process together. And if you're in my accelerated plan, we're going to go through it faster. We can do more in the early months because we have more time budgeted. So we can maybe get through multiple months worth of work in a shorter period of time. Or if you're on the awareness plan, that's going to stretch back out. And we're going to have to move a bit slower because we've decided to budget at that lower pace of just kind of an introduction to SEO. So I want to leave you with the idea that growing your business is really possible with SEO as a service. And the big ingredients for success: pitch, pricing, process. And thank you so much. I'm Lindsay Halsey with Pathfinder SEO.
Thank you, Lindsay. That was super insightful. I know SEO is one of those things that I think a lot of people would like to add to their arsenal, but sometimes are afraid to dive in. So that's a lot of really good information.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And I'm glad you put up that slide. So in order to go ahead and take action on the 25% off for 3 months, that is the offer code right there. So it's 1MM Milestone. And I think we'll go ahead and put it in the chat. Lindsay, do you have time to stick around and chat in case anybody has any questions?
Most definitely.
Awesome. Awesome.